evening, everyone. Welcome to this webinar, Nitric Oxide, a molecule that signals your biochemistry to keep you healthy. I welcome all the participants of the webinar to this exclusive event of Gene Fithletics. And we shall be beginning this event now. In this event, you will learn how nitric oxide is produced inside the body, the oral microbiome nitric oxide connection, how loss of nitric oxide causes type 2 diabetes, oxidative stress, cardiovascular disease, and erectile dysfunction. Role of drugs and antacids in disrupting nitric oxide production. Then role of nitric oxide in mitochondrial biogenesis and exercise performance. And again, nitric oxide also plays a role in your aging and longevity. That is something we will be discussing. So Sushant, welcome to this webinar. I welcome you. And folks, for those who don't know Sushant, he is the founder and CEO of Gene Fithletics, and he is going to be our host in this event. He's going to explain us the logics behind nitric oxide. So Sushant, over to you. Let us begin the discussion.
Thank you, Sakshi, and welcome everyone. I hope other people will be joining soon. So let us start. Right. So we all relate nitric oxide with a lot of people think it's an free radical, it's harmful, and we have seen a lot of research earlier, which shows that nitric oxide produces nitrous wine, and probably it's linked with cancer also. But these all research have been refuted, and we have recent evidences around the role of nitric oxide in maintaining our health and longevity, right? So it's so what nitric oxide is? It is a gas, right? It is the gas that is produced inside our body, right? It is diffused in 3 dimensions and it goes, right? So within few seconds. So essentially, to make sure that our body is producing this every second, it has to be continuously produced, and for that we need to regulate our biochemistry, right? And that's what we're going to discuss, right, about nitric oxide, right? So again, it's a signaling molecule. It is related to various biological processes inside our body, right? So to start with, it is how the cells communicate, right? It's produced along the lining of a blood vessel. It is produced by microbes living in our mouth, right? So it is a vasodilator. So it regulates your blood flow. It dilates your blood vessel. It leads to smoothen your muscle relaxation, smoothing. It helps in oxygen and nutrient delivery and uptake. So a lot of people will say, okay, oxygen delivery is done by hemoglobin, but again, nitric oxide controls that oxygen delivery. So in terms of exercise performance, right, when we are exercising, we need blood flow to our heart, and that's again, nitric oxide regulates our blood flow, obviously through probably next slide we'll discuss about the mechanism how the nitric oxide is produced, right? So it makes sure that oxygen and nutrient delivered to the working muscle tissue, so that impacts your exercise performance, right? It also acts as neurotransmitter. So probably if you are forgetting something, probably you're forgetting your key or something you have put somewhere in your room, or your house, or in your office, probably that's some issue with your nitric oxide production. It helps in your memory formation and learning, right? And it is also implicated in a lot of brain related health issues like vascular dementia and alzheimer, which also we'll be discussing, right? So, and most important thing, which is actually in India specifically, people do not understand, and that's why it's very important that nitric oxide potentiates insulin signaling and glucose uptake, right? So essentially, when it is signaled for GLUT4. GLUT4 is a protein which is expressed when insulin is secreted. Insulin binds to various insulin receptors. There are signaling cascades, and GLUT4 is something which goes to cell membrane, bind glucose, and clear it from the circulation, transport to cell for storage energy. And the signal for GLUT4 to do this act is nitric oxide, right? So essentially, nitric oxide play a very key role in preventing the onset and progression of type 2 diabetes, right? And that's why even Alzheimer's, because Alzheimer's is now called as type 3 diabetes, right? So again, it is a free radical, but it is not toxic. It is an electron donor, so it has an antioxidant, anti-inflammatory impact. So it prevents the oxidative stress and inflammation, right? Which is again a hallmark of every single chronic disease, right? Even the hormone regulation, right? The endocrine gland. So essentially, nitric oxide is a part of the endocrine gland, and it actually tells how much of hormones has to be released, and even in terms of the sense of you know how much of more or less of a particular hormone is released. So probably that sensing is required through blood flow, and if there is disrupted blood flow, probably you cannot sense how much of each hormone is required, and that is one of the reasons for hormonal imbalances as well, right? Uh, yeah, it impacts sexual health. So since it is it dilates blood vessel, it improves blood flow to various body organs, including sexual organs. So essentially, people who have sexual dysfunction or erectile dysfunction, right? The reason is not testosterone, but the functional loss of nitric oxide production, right? Uh, Again, as Sakshi mentioned, it impacts our health and longevity. So it impacts our mitochondrial energy production. So essentially, a mitochondria uses oxygen to produce, to convert the food we eat into ATP. And again, this is true as a result. And again, for this act, we need a flow of electrons, right? And again, it is nitric oxide that controls the electron transport chain, right? So essentially, it also prevents the electron leakage since it's an electron donor. So if someone has a sufficient nitric oxide production, right, it actually leads to more ATP produced, or ATP is less, using less oxygen. So it improves your energy efficiency, right? And it also expresses or potential expression of PGC1 alpha, which is a gene which leads to mitochondrial biogenesis. So essentially, it helps in both functions. It helps in producing ATP and also helps in mitochondrial biogenesis, which is again is a hallmark for longevity, right? So also it prevents telomere shortening by expressing telomerase enzyme, which is again one of the factor why we age early, right? Regulates immune function, as we have discussed, right? Again, stem cells, we need stem cells for mobilization, differentiation, and repairing the cells, and for that functions, nitric oxide is the signal for that function, right? So again, from a cardiovascular disease perspective, it modifies the platelet activation, it regulates inflammation, right? So we'll be going discussing in detail all those things, right? So this is what we discussed, right? It is linked with every single biochemical process inside the body: reproductive health, sexual health, immune system health, excretory system, right? Since it prevents oxidative stress, respiratory system, cardiovascular system, neurological system, and endocrine system, right? So again, there are three isoforms, which actually leads to production of nitric oxide, and NOS, which is neural NOS, which is actually explains certain specific neurons. It helps in your memory and learning and recall, right? It also helps in regulating your blood pressure, and also the impact of blood flow to sexual organs, right? Inducible NOS again is uh, 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 just a second. Yeah. So inducible NOS is again it is activated when there's some inflammation, some cytokine, and it's overexpressed in case of inflammatory disease. Like ENS again is endothelial cells endothelial nitric synthase, which is coupled with endothelial cell, which produces nitric oxide, which is again inhibits platelet acquisition and addition to vascular wall. It is a vasodilator. It activates glucose. So it has a lot of role to play in terms of improving your metabolic health. Uh, so again, these are two pathways how our body produces nitric oxide, right? One of us obviously ENOS, endothelial network synthase, again, which is an enzyme which is coupled with endothelial cell, which line every single blood vessel inside our body, right? So this enzyme uses L-arginine in presence of oxygen to produce nitric oxide and acetylene. Again, it is a 5-electron oxidation process, right? And again, this nitric oxide can further be oxidized into nitrate and nitrate, which again could be used to produce nitric oxide, right? So essentially, L-arginine is a semi-essential amino acid, right? We do not need to take too much of it, right? And it's naturally produced inside our body via urea cycle in liver, and and also it produces in the kidneys. And again, there's enough of L-arginine inside our body, even in whether sick or disease state, right? So you don't need to consume too much of it, right? And again, this pathway starts, this pathway becomes less effective as we age, right? So by the time we reach the age of 50, the ability of this pathway to produce nitric oxide reduced by 50%. Right? That's why the second pathway becomes more and more important, which is again the oral bacteria, right? So we consume a lot of these uh, green vegetables which are high in nitrate. So your microbes in your mouth convert these nitrate in these green vegetable to nitrite, which again mixes with stomach acid to produce nitric oxide, right? So again, if your oral microbiome is imbalanced due to consumption of mouthwash or a lot of sugar, or probably fluoride in the toothpaste, so probably that could disrupt your nitric oxide production, right? And again, that could trigger a lot of issues. So one of the reasons why people have type 2 diabetes, which is missed, is again too much consumption of mouthwashes, and or probably the toothpaste which are having fluoride, right? This again, these are two pathways, right? And again, this is what I discussed. So probably as we age, right, the ability of ENOS to produce nitric oxide declines, and that's why by the age of 60, when you cross the 60, we lose around 85% of the ability to make nitric oxide. So that's why the oral microbiome driven nitric oxide production becomes more and more important, right? So what are the factors that impact nitric oxide production, right? As I mentioned, age, obviously, we discussed nutrition, what you eat. So again, what you eat, probably your microbes in your mouth pre-digest the food and convert into certain metabolites. Right? These metabolites can be good and bad, right? So again, it could lead to oral dysbiosis. It could disrupt the functions of the nitrate reducers in the mouth and could disrupt the nitrate oxide production. Oral hygiene, yeah, as I mentioned, use of mouthwash, disrupt kills all the bacteria in your mouth. It disrupts the nitric oxide production. Or use of fluoride, again, it's a neurotoxin. It changes your pH level of your mouth, right? It leads to growth of pathogens, and again, it disrupts nitric oxide production. Stress, obviously, impacts your nitric oxide production, and again, it leads to dysbiosis, and it leads to imbalances. Exercise do improve the nitric oxide production, right? So modern physical exercise is something, what we really need to actually, understand. It's actually needed to regulate our nitric oxide production. Again, medication is something, which again, PPIs, antacids, it stops your stomach. There's no stomach acid, and because people who have acid reflux take a lot of these PPIs, which actually, clears all the stomach acid. You don't have stomach acid, you can't digest, you can't produce nitric oxide, because again, we need the nitrite in the stomach to be proteinated to convert into nitric oxide. So essentially, all these medications like PPIs and antacids and Nexium, even statins do impact, right? In terms of it impacts the cell levels, and it suppresses cholesterol levels. It impacts the cell structure and fluidity, and which directly impacts your mitochondrial function and red cell signaling, right? Just a second. So, what disrupts the nitric oxide production? Probably we've discussed all these things. So essentially, I'll just brief it up, right? So, oxidative stress, again, there are multiple factors which cause the oxidative stress. One of the most important factors is consumption of omega-6 and seed oil, vegetables oil, and and in terms of the polyunsaturated oils, which polyunsaturated fats, right? So these oils could change your cell structure and purity. It impacts your intercellular circulation, it impacts your hydroxide production directly. Consumption of seed oil changes your cell structure. It could lead to oxidative stress. It could lead to production of ROS, which could impact your mitochondrial function, right? High sugary diet, obviously, it attacks to your enzymes and proteins and making dysfunction, so your cells cannot function and lead to cell dysfunction. Inflammation again is a reason which suppresses your nitric production, right? Oxidation of tetrahydrobiopterin, which is again one of the cofactor which of ENOS, which is used to potentiate the production of nitric oxide, right? Lipid prioritization is again when we are consuming a lot of fragile, oils such as seed oils and vegetables oil, or probably we are not taking a lot of healthy fats like ghee, butter, and all these things. Probably it directly impacts your cellular functions. There is the bad oils react with oxygen, which causes lipid peroxidation and which causes reactive species, and again it impacts your nitric oxide production. Overconsumption of L-arginine, right? So essentially, when we consume L-arginine, because we think if L-arginine as a supplement is required to produce nitric oxide, right? It is mostly used by a lot of bodybuilders and people who go to gym and work out, right? So essentially, this could, in terms of this could lead to overexpression of synthesis called, arginase, which rather than producing nitric oxide produces, converts L-arginine into urea and polyamides, and there's no NO production. Or probably when you have an inflammation, probably L-arginine could activate INOS, which suppresses your NNOS and ENOS, which is again, which leads to which has only nitric oxide production, right? Again, in case of aging, obviously, because as we age, ENOS pathway becomes less and less effective. So L-arginine is not an effective way of improving your nitric oxide production, right? Again, nitrate produced via oral microbiome is a way to restore your nitric oxide production. Again, so uncoupling of ENOS again is which shut down your nitric oxide production. Again, nitrate plays a role in terms of it increases the production of BH4, right? Recouple ENOS, right? NADPH is required in the production of nitric oxide, and in oxidation is actually which uncouples, which leads to production of superoxide, again nitrate, and inhibits NOS, right? Uncouple mitochondria because of oxidative stress and reactive species, actually, which again is source of superoxide, which leads to which shut down the production of nitric oxide and probably leads to production of superoxide, and again nitrite and nitric oxide recouples the electron transport chain. So essentially, the oral microbiome pathway becomes more and more important in stopping the oxidative stress and the activity of superoxide. So, role of nitric oxide in various body functions, right? Immune system, we know it plays a key role in defense against bacteria, virus, fungi, pathogens, right? Cardiovascular, it regulates your blood pressure. It dilates your blood pressure. It is a vasodilator. It inhibits the platelet activation, aggregation, right? And it decreases the leukocyte. So probably it stops it stops the plaque deposition, right? So essentially, in case of autoimmune diseases, there is so in case of autoimmune diseases, right? Oxidative stress, so oxidative stress due to ROS could cause immune system dysregulation. Now, obviously, formation of antibodies. So NO via nitrate pathway suppresses your oxidative stress, right? Again, mitochondria, we have discussed it. It regulates PGC1 alpha and lead to mitochondrial biogenesis, and also it controls the electron transport chains to produce more ATP using less oxygen, right? So again, Brain health obviously linked to, so nitric oxide regulates your blood flow, your nutrient, your oxygen delivery, so it directly impacts your learning process, memory formation, and also, in terms of blood flow, there's no blood flow, probably, if endothelial cell, there's endothelial dysfunction, so, it could disrupt the blood-brain barrier, it could allow toxic products to move to brain, and that is something which leads to a lot of dementia issues, right? Hormone regulation we have discussed, right? In terms of hormone regulation, we generally, it is nitric oxide that controls the secretion of hormones. It interacts with your and endocrine glands to secrete hormones, right? And again, sexual health we have discussed that it regulates your blood flow, and it actually prevents erectile dysfunction. Even so it activates cyclic GMP, which is a messenger, right? Which actually potentiates dilates the blood vessel, and leads to improved blood flow, which actually promotes pro-erection efforts, right? And again, type 2 diabetes, we know, it activates GLUT4, right? And the a lot of these antacids and the medicines you take, it works with ADMA, which is asymmetric dimethyl which suppresses nitric oxide production. Again, the consumption of a lot of these antacids is linked with the onset and progression of type 2 diabetes, right? So that's basic about what nitric oxide is all about, how it impacts various biological functions. So essentially, any questions till now we can discuss.
So people, all of you, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat box and we'll take them out one by one. Any questions from anyone? I think we can just continue. I don't think there are any questions. Yeah.
Okay.
Hang on. I think we have a question here from Mr. Nanim. He's asking, how does usage of mouthwash lead to DM? DM is it related to dental health issues? So he wants
Sorry?
to ask how does usage of mouthwash leads to diabetes? Okay, diabetes.
Okay, so mouthwash as a function is, it wipes off all the bacteria in your mouth, right? And the bacteria in your mouth, you know, plays a key role. So when we eat green vegetables, right, such as spinach, agula, beetroot, right, all these have nitrate, which is, metabolized by these bacteria in your mouth and synthesized into nitrite. Again, nitrite, which is goes to your stomach acid, it is protonated to convert into nitric oxide, right? So again, if you are consuming mouthwash, it kills all those bacteria, and then your body loses the ability to produce or to convert nitrate into nitrite into nitric oxide, and that's why you don't have nitric oxide production. This leads to endothelial cell dysfunction, right? So that is one of the reasons why, again, nitric oxide is one of the key molecule which regulates. So essentially, in case of diabetes, what happens is, when you eat something, microbes in your mouth predigest the foods and release metabolites and send signals to pancreas to start releasing insulin. The insulin is released, it binds to your insulin receptors, more from fat cells and muscle cells, and there is an insulin cascade, right? And there's signaling cascade. And again, it tells GLUT4 to go to cell membrane, bind to glucose, and create from the circulation transport to cells for either using for energy or storing, right? And this activation of GLUT4 we need nitric oxide is a signal to activate look for, right? And again, if you're taking mouthwash, it doesn't, produce nitric oxide, shut down the nitric oxide production. Again, it increases the risk of type 2 diabetes. Yeah.
So we have another question. What foods, vegetables, herbs to eat in daily life to boost nitric oxide production? He's asking whether beetroot is one of them and the other foods that you can
So
just
again,
mention.
it's I'll just get into a bit of detail here. So again, yeah, spinach, arugula, beetroot, these all are foods, all the green vegetables. But again, we have to look at multiple things here. So essentially, if you're taking beetroot, which is again, there are a lot of beetroot juices coming in the market, probably, which says that, okay, this is going to improve the nitric oxide production. So, but the beetroot has a lot of oxalate as well. So if your body or gut microbiome cannot neutralize oxalate, so probably beetroot may be harmful, right? So essentially, mostly in terms of vegetable, obviously all the green vegetables, 85% of your nitrate comes from all the green vegetables, right? So whatever green vegetables you can probably eat, right? Yeah, herbs is something probably, you should look at various herbs. Probably Sakshi, you can shed some light on herbs.
So I think in terms of vegetables, some non-oxidate ones are French beans, green beans, especially. They are not having the oxalate problem because usually what happens is green leafy vegetables, if you talk about them, they are mostly having oxalate. And even green peas. And when we say green peas, it should not be the frozen peas which is available. The fresh green peas is something one can look at. And in terms of herbs, then there are basil is a herb which will help in that. Basil, oregano, rosemary, dried herbs. You can try that. One can also try thyme in terms of nitric oxide production. And even mint, peppermint also helps in terms of nitric oxide production. So these are couple of herbs that we, generally ask people to incorporate in their daily lives. Yes.
And another point I want to add is in terms of the toothpaste, it should not have fluoride, right? So essentially, you should look at toothpaste which are high in nano hydroxyapatite because that's something which you required for remineralization and for boosting your saliva, right? Again, fluoride reduces your oral pH level, which again becomes a breeding ground for pathogen, which causes oral dysbiosis and which can shut down the microbiome. Right?
And also a word of caution, when you're looking for a toothpaste without fluoride, you might come across some brands anywhere, even in India or abroad, that they are using NaH, the nano hydroxyapatite, right? But then if any of them has any ingredients such as saccharins or maybe any artificial sweeteners, then that there is a red flag over there, right, Sushant?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
most
yeah.
of them, the ingredients, you need to look at the ingredients that
Artificial
they should be.
sweeteners. We should
Yes,
avoid artificial sweeteners, aspartame, saccharins, all these things, and
SLS.
SLS, right, which is again a detergent actually, right? It should not, right, be part of your oral hygiene, right? And
It
again,
should have food. It should have herbal extracts, even food extracts. That is okay. But when a toothpaste has a fluoride, it is going to cause neurodegenerative disorder. It is like you are preparing a ground for that. And when we are saying that, we are not just saying it theoretically. We have applied it onto ourselves. We have seen that how this reduction in fluoride, most of your inflammation of the mouth and even of the gut, it goes away because your saliva, it has a lot of bacterias and they travel to the gut because we ingest it, right? Every hour our body, it releases saliva. Our mouth, the saliva is produced in
we,
the mouth
we
and it
swallow the
goes
saliva,
down.
so probably, yeah, the saliva, a lot of these bacteria can move. And another thing is, fluoride actually could enter your pineal gland and could impact your sleep patterns, right? It is implicated, such implicated in imbalancing your thyroid functions, right? So essentially, fluoride and mouthwash is something which you should avoid. Antacids, statins, all these drugs would disrupt your nitric oxide production, right? So again, these are something which are you know uh, a complete no in terms of regulating your nitric oxide production. Yeah.
And also when let's say if someone has a severe acid reflux problem, and if antacids is something which one has been taking a lot, then one might actually replace it with fennel seeds, the raw fennel seeds. One can chew them after every meal because your acid reflux, it will go down eventually. And even it's a good remedy when someone is having a motion sickness problem, or if someone is having this nausea feeling most of the time after having their meals. So fennel seeds, that will really help them. One can keep them handy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So any other questions anyone would like to ask here?
You should make a list of all the food products which are great for nitric oxide production in the body, and then you could give us.
Gautam,
Yes.
there's nothing called as a list for nitric oxide because we may give you a food which may stimulate nitric oxide production, but it may stimulate other adverse biochemical activities which may trigger inflammation, right? So there's no such universal healthy foods which would help you in terms of regulating balance. So you have to look at a holistic picture. You can't say, okay, I will take spinach, I will take arugula, I will take beetroot, right, and which is going to promote my nitric oxide production, but it is also going to trigger oxalate or maybe ammonia because these some of these foods may be metabolized by your gut microbiome into harmful byproducts which could stimulate inflammatory activities. Right? So essentially, to some extent, you should look at green vegetables, but again, how those are interacting with other microbiome inside your mouth, inside your gut is also what matters. Yeah,
Okay.
So I think we can continue from here, Sushant.
yeah, sure.
Yes.
So we are going to briefly talk about, just a second, this is coming in between. Yeah. So I'm going to briefly talk about, yeah, uh, about how we are actually, measuring nitric oxide production. So we look at, so first thing is, we are a bit about us. We are a microbiome company. We analyze the downstream functions performed by gut and oral microbiome, right? To identify certain signals, pre-disease signals, which are moving you towards a particular disease, and then construct nutrition interventions which can regulate your biology, right? So again, we focus on epigenetics, we focus on gene expression. I think most of the companies probably were from India know that most of the companies focus on microbial DNA, we focus on the microbial RNA, right? So again, our program, our platform is completely data-driven. There is no role of any human intervention here, right? So we collect your molecular data and your phenotype and longitudinal data. We analyze it and give you recommendation, right? So, okay. Okay, so this is how we go about it. So we take gather your stool, saliva, and blood in future. We collect these data. We do sequencing to collect your RNA molecules and metabolites, and we combine with your longitudinal phenotype data to identify the pre-disease signals which are generally unidentified, non-discoverable by the current set of diagnostic plasma diagnostic tests, right? So we could tell whether you are going to develop a particular disease or not, we have developed these prediction models for type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, chronic kidney disease, and halitosis, right? And then on that basis, we marry these metabolites and pathways with the food ontology to arrive at food recommendations. What food you should consume more of, what food you should minimize, what food you should avoid, what should you should enjoy. Right? And then this is something how we, evaluate a graphical representation of how we are actually identifying the disease signal before disease manifests, right? So this is a typical way of how we arrive at food recommendations. So based on your sequencing and your longitudinal data, we calculate, we quantify and measure your pathways. Again, we look at around 100 plus pathways. Each of these pathways are either good, bad, and average. And again, these pathways are again mapped or combined mathematically with food ontology, which is around 30,000 molecules. Again, on that basis, we determine what are your superfood, what are your enjoy food, what are your moderate food, what are your avoid foods, what specific vitamin mineral your body needs, in what quantity, what amino acids you need, what quantity, what food itself you need, what prebiotic probiotic you need, what quantity. Uh, Again, the benefit is obviously, we stop the growth of bacteria causing bad breath. We stimulate the production of nitric oxide. Again, one of the pathways is nitric oxide, right? So we can tell you, your level of nitric oxide production. So our food recommendations are guided towards balancing your oral pH level. It should not be more acidic, right? Suppress the pro-inflammatory activities, right? Provide alternate sources of energy formation, degradation backwards also. Especially they don't degrade your muscle and doesn't cause autoimmune issues, right? Stop leaky gums, and in case of got leaky mouth, right, regulate the insulin response to food. So we have a specific, we build a specific machine learning model where we could predict your insulin response to 300 plus foods. So you could know whether, before even consuming, whether the food is going to spike your insulin or not, right? Again, supplements are focused on moderating your inflammation, reducing oxidative stress, reducing gum inflammation. So immune response and minimize systemic inflammation. Right? So that's it from our side, and we are happy to take up more questions. There are.
So, okay. William Sotka has a question here.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah, William. So essentially, yeah, if they are optometry, they are really great. But again, we need our oral microbiome have to be, active to convert the nitrate in beetroot into nitrate, which could mix with stomach acid to produce nitric oxide, right? So essentially, yeah, and we'll be happy to, William, to have your products blend with our tests as well.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sushant. Thank you, all the participants, uh, for sparing your time for this webinar. And we will be back with another discussing a scientific aspect. There are more pathways to be discussed in terms of
Actually,
oral
would you
microbiome production.
like to mention about our upcoming cancer test as well?
Yes, so for the benefit of everyone, we will be soon launching our oncology test, and that is specifically for oral cancer. It will be providing an analysis of oral cancer detection in an individual, whether or not an individual is moving towards the oral cancer or not. So this is like an early detection. This is where we are able to detect the pre-disease signals in an individual. So usually what happens is, in cancerous situations, the cancer is usually detected at stage 4 or stage 2, right? But early detection, there is nowhere found. And in terms of oral cancers, we will be launching this soon in August. So Sushant, would you like to add here other things?
Yes. So essentially, we are looking at your molecular feature, looking at your functions of your oral microbiome, right? Which are triggering inflammation and manifesting the changes in the biochemistry, which would lead to oral cancer onset. And we look at pre-lesion and pre-tumor signals. So probably there are changes in your biochemistry, which is actually making you develop oral cancer, right? But these are not yet reflected in your cancerous situation, or there's no tumor developed, or there's no lesion as said before. So even before those symptoms show up, so probably it's a very early stage, and we could eliminate them using nutrition, right? So that is
The
something which
preventive approach towards cancer. So this is like a preventive approach towards the cancer, and this will be beneficial for all those who are either at a risk of developing oral cancer. Let's say if you have a habit of chewing tobacco, smoking, regular chain smokers, and some people who consume a lot of alcohol, and then some lifestyle other habits as well. And then also for those people who have already undergone oral cancer surgeries, and then if they want to prevent the reoccurrence, this is going to be very beneficial for them. Yes, Sushant?
yeah. So we are launching this, on 15th of August, right? And it would be available to everyone in India right now, right? So it's very simple. You probably we'll send the kit at your location. You can collect the saliva sample, you get it picked, and we give you the results in 4 weeks.
Yes. This is like an at-home test, and all we need is your saliva sample. So thank you. Thank you, Sushant, for the announcement as well. And I hope this is going to benefit all the users and all the participants here as well. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.